Welcome back to Get Down to Business. I'm very excited to talk about achieving the impossible with Dr. Stuart Lichtman. Dr. Stuart Lichtman is an executive, an entrepreneur, researcher, consultant, trainer, and coach. He is the president of Partners in Excellence, and he's guided and run about 100 companies, trained more than 70,000 people around the world. We're going to talk all about some of the amazing work he's doing right now in the world of helping people sort of achieve the impossible. Stuart Lichtman, welcome to Get Down to Business.
Great. You know,
it's great.
The first thing I'd like to say is that most of what people say doesn't work because they're addressing the conscious mind. And what doesn't work is the unconscious. Like if when you learn a language, you ever watched a kid learn a language? It takes about 5 years before they learn to read. They have to learn all sorts of little things, like what sounds are meaningful, not what they're associated with, etc. If you were to, at your adult age, learn a new language, such as, for me, Russian, because I don't know the Cyrillic alphabet or Russian, it'd probably take me 3 to 5 years. But if I look at anything in English, I just read. I know what it says on the page, just like you do. Now, that happens because we have lots of unconscious, successful habit patterns. And this determines our success. We agreed to talk a little bit about marketing, selling. So let me start with that.
Yeah, please. And just as we get into that, I mean, Stuart, I know you've helped, as we said, 70,000 plus people in this. So certainly looking at how we can be strategic in multiplying on the sales side. So I know you've done this many times. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. Now, my approach is very simple. It multiplies sales by a company by 3 to 8 times a year. That is a 300 to 800% increase consistently. Most salespeople spend 80% of their time trying to sell to people who won't buy because they don't know who is going to buy. But in fact, all of my research with artificial intelligence over a period of 40 years has demonstrated there are 12 unconscious personality types in the world. And if you hone in on the 2 or 3 of those that really unconsciously want what you're selling, and you know their value structures, your sales are going to shoot like hell, way up. The process of learning to consciously manage your unconscious to do seemingly impossible things is what I cover in my book, How to Get Lots of Money for Anything Fast. Sold about 70,000 copies of it so far over the web. And what can I say? It produces results. People in my training program, the Superachiever Children Training Program, have a literal 100% success rate at first try in achieving their seemingly impossible results. 100%. Now, there's a catch in that, 2 catches. One catch is you have to do the assigned work, but that's kind of life. The second thing is you have to move in steps if you're going for a really big thing. Say you want to learn, you're now making 150,000 a year, and you want to make $1 million. Well, what is holding you back is both your target and what I call blockers, self-defeating unconscious habit patterns. Self-defeating unconscious habit patterns fill our life. They look like fatigue, annoyance, distraction, discomfort, not understanding. I can't do that. Why are they not acting the way I want? And so forth. You're creating all the things in your unconscious. I have ways of permanently changing all that from negative things that pull you down to positive things that pull you up. The salesmen that I train do really well because, number one, they aggregate their lifetime of experiences with people to come up with models of the clusters or types of people who buy from them. And then by sitting down with them, they find out what the hot buttons are. And then, amazing thing happens. They use my cybernetic transposition technique, what I teach in my book, to set objectives each month, and they hit them.
Yeah.
Now,
well, Stuart, I'm gonna have to leave it there for just a moment because we've got to squeeze in a quick break to pay the bills over here. But we're going to continue our conversation with Dr. Stuart Lichtman as we've been chatting a little bit about, again, how you could achieve the impossible. We've been chatting about how this technique can really and has helped companies go to 8 times in revenue. I mean, some really, really fantastic results. Again, you're listening to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Get Down to Business. I'm your host, Shalom Klein, and I'm continuing my conversation with Dr. Stuart Lichtman, who has achieved a lot in helping both individuals, helping business owners achieve the impossible. And that's exactly where we're at in our conversation. Stuart, you've shared a lot. You've shared some advice. You've shared a lot that has taken place. But let's talk about some of those success stories. Any that you can point to?
Sure. Let's take a big company like Ericsson. I used to fly around the world once a month working with CEOs and their leading groups. Ericsson had a division that wasn't working well. They were considering killing it. In 3 months, we turned it from a deadbeat to a highly successful one. Volvo had a conflict between 2 divisions for 20 years. The conflict was that most money in a car company is made by spare parts division. The car division that makes the cars wants to increase quality, but when you do, you negatively impact spare parts. In 1 weekend, we resolved that harmoniously. In a case with TRW, they had a division that was really sick. It took 3 months to turn it around. In the British government, back when Margaret Thatcher was the prime minister, they were being attacked by Leninist labor unions trying to destroy industry, and we helped her turn that around in 6 months. I've also run a lot of companies as hired gun for venture capitalists. I can't talk about their names because VCs write contracts say you can't do that. But turning those around is kind of duck soup. The individual entrepreneur, the little guy, has to really be very good at homing in on their target market and knowing the points of value. And that is something they learned from my book. More than that, the last presenter was talking about getting jobs. I have a totally different way. In essence, you design a perfect job with a perfect boss, and then you unconsciously put it in operation, and it has about 100% success rate.
That's great. Stuart, we're coming to a conclusion in our time, and I want to make sure before we get cut off that we share your website with our listeners so they can learn more about your process and get in touch with you. Again, Dr. Stuart Lichtman, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Okay. I have a website called stuartlichtman.com, StuartLichtman.com. It's a general website with lots of content and so forth. If someone really wants to get in touch with me, the best way is to reach me by text, and then we can talk on the phone. My phone number is 805-452-1787, but I have an unknown caller blocker, so you need to text first.
Okay. Well, Stuart Lichtman, I really appreciate you sharing your expertise with our listeners. I look forward to getting in touch with you and certainly continuing this conversation. You've shared a lot with us. Very appreciative for that. That is a wrap for us here on Get Down to Business this week. You could always get a sneak peek of who's going to be on next week on the show, all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship through my website, shalomklein.com. And to subscribe to the podcast, just go to your favorite podcast app, search for Get Down to Business, but be sure to rate and review. To success, let's get down to business. Have a great week ahead. We'll talk to you next Sunday at 6 p.m. right here on AM 560 The Answer.